Welcome back to my podcast. We are on episode 71. Last time we spoke about Ruia and my crushes and some girls and boys. Today I want to rewind a little and talk about how I had not connected romance and sexuality in my mind until much later. As a 12-year-old, when I first felt some longing and arousal and touched myself for a minute or two every night, I had no idea that had anything to do with romance, and I obviously did not even know the concept of sexuality. And then after several months of this, one day I thought, what if I don't stop touching myself? And then when I experienced an orgasm, that was the most wow surprise moment where I was like, whoa, this was something so unexpected, and it felt like some divine gift to me at the time. That time I actually felt sexuality was divine. So I had my ideas like that at the time. I remember what my fantasy used to be, my first fantasy. Just seeing someone even with an exposed midriff was very scandalizing. I remember when mom had strictly told me as a child that whenever on the screen there was some item songs, where these actresses, Aruna Irani and all these dancers would do a dance during a movie, and they would sometimes show a close-up of their midriff, and mom would strictly say, don't look at the midriff, and I would avert my eyes whenever that came because I had no idea why. I was just obeying. And I remember getting so scandalized where I saw that people in the West wore a bikini or a swimsuit. That much skin exposure was very, very scandalizing for me. And I remember the first fantasy was, I was so scandalized when I saw that people actually ask others to apply sunscreen on their back or the oil or whatever. So that was the fantasy that used to arouse me at that time. And at the time where I had discovered an orgasm, I think I would masturbate every night. And then one day I remember mom was like, oh, my little girl never sleeps near me anymore, and she asked me to sleep in her bed, and I was like, no, it's okay. And she would be like, no, come sleep near me. So I went there to sleep near mom and dad, and I'm thinking, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And I don't know why I did. I was very subtle and not really moving, but that was so unnecessary when I look back on it. Why would I risk that after what mom had done, after she had shamed me and troubled me so much about it? I don't know why I took that huge risk of just doing it right there in mom's bed, lying next to mom. Probably she was asleep. Hopefully she was asleep. Now I shared a room with Ruby and Molly, and we all shared the same bed. We had a pull-out bed. Earlier we had these bizarre folding beds, and they were not firm. After the initial month or so, they started sagging inward, so we would roll inward on those beds. That was really bad. So then afterwards, when we got the pull-out bed, that was an upgrade. It had this foam mattress. So on that bed, one night I felt like I noticed Ruby kind of moving, and I did not judge her and I did not mind, because why? This was our bed, this was our room. So if she was pleasuring herself, that was her business. I just ignored it. But at some point, I don't remember after how much time, one day Molly confronted me. She's like, others can make out what you are doing in the bed. So I got the hint and I felt very embarrassed, and I just kept quiet. Now to me, that was enough of a hint. I got it. Okay, I will manage next time. I will not be doing anything in the bed next time. But Molly wouldn't stop. She just pushed it. She's like, when you do something in the bed, others get to know. That is not okay. So she went on about that, and I felt very, very embarrassed. Another incident was where our upstairs neighbor had put this pipe connected to the tap to wash their privates. Now, Indians don't just wipe, we wash and then wipe. So there's a tap always with a mug or a little bucket under it, and then you take that mug close to you and you kind of splash yourself and clean yourself with your hand, and then you splash water again, which is quite inconvenient. So once when mom was in the upstairs neighbor's house and she saw that they had connected a little pipe to their tap, and it would straight away get the water very close to the toilet, and this was an Indian toilet, so hole in the floor kind of thing. So you could just let the water flow. You didn't have to bother about splashing with one hand. You held the pipe in place and you cleaned yourself, and that was really quick and convenient. So mom was very happy. She's like, oh yeah, let's do that. So she fixed that pipe. We called a plumber. We fixed the pipe. And what I discovered was that if you held the pipe a certain way, the water would fall on your clit and you could feel pleasure. Guess what? Mom discovered it too. Now we could have all just been quiet about it and enjoyed it, but no, mom got really angry and she removed the pipe. So mom discovering that having a pipe and letting the water touch your clit felt good, and mom removed it. So mom was actively seeking pleasure avoidance for us, for all of us. So that was her bizarre value system, which I could not make any sense of. So at the time, I was 12, 13, 14. I had no idea about the existence of the male private part. Like I had said, mom had slapped me for asking about pregnancy and those kind of things. So I just did not even let my mind go there. So at age 15, when my friends had cracked some dirty jokes, we were the batch of 88. So in 88 June itself, we had joined college, and I would turn 16 only in December 88. So at age 15, I had discovered that, oh, boys have something called a PP. And I remembered what it looked like because I got that repressed memory back of seeing the little baby boy who had a PP. So it was a few more years in senior college where the psychology teacher conducted a sexual awareness class, and we were allowed to ask questions anonymously on a chit. And I had asked, is it the same hole from where they pee and they come? They do the sexual thing? And I was hoping, please no, because girls have different holes. And why would you have excreta and reproductive stuff coming out of the same hole? Why? And then the teacher read the question and answered, yes, it is the same hole. And I was horrified. And well, that would explain why some girls who get married suddenly experience these UTIs, and when they've been infection free all their life, when they get married and start having intercourse, suddenly why do they have all these problems? I remember one colleague, very pretty sweet girl, Maharashtrian girl called Deepali, and I was 40 and working. She was this young thing that had just gotten married, and poor thing, she had such a bad infection because of her husband that in the office we were traveling to another office, and she was like, oh my god, I can't wait, I have to pee. And I was like, okay, hold on, we are reaching. And when we reached, I started saying hello to someone I knew, and she's like, you say hello afterwards, show me where's the washroom. That's how bad it was for her, poor thing. So women have to suffer this because boys have apparently only one hole for excreta, for urination, as well as for discharging their sperm. Strange design, but that's how it is. So I figured that out in senior college when the psychology teacher conducted a sexual awareness workshop. So initially I thought this whole thing of feeling aroused and touching myself and feeling pleasure and experiencing an orgasm, I thought it was just me. I thought it was something that only I knew and I did, and I used to feel so much shame. I remember once where my sisters, Rakhi brothers, were in the house, Rajesh, Paresh, and they said hello to me, and I said, hello brothers, and in my mind I was like, oh my god, you don't know how bad your sister is, what bad things she does. So this is what I thought. I thought it was just me, and I was doing some really bad things sometimes. Now when I look around, I feel sad about how children don't stand a chance of experiencing arousal and pleasure organically. The step by step of where you're in the latency phase, you start from zero. Like the first time you look at someone and feel that joy, the first time you hold hands and you feel so good, and the very first kiss, all of that anticipation and not knowing about the final act has its own charm. When you already know everything, then that magic is kind of lost. So we have deprived our children of that because of how society has progressed, and I don't blame them because we have to have our children aware due to a handful of predators like this Swarn who had sexually assaulted me as a 12-year-old, and he targeted many children who were around that age group. So because of a handful of such predators, we do have to educate our children, and I understand the existence of porn also for adults, and unfortunately we were not able to protect our children from that, so they get early exposure. So that magic of discovering romance and then discovering sex is lost, and that kind of makes me sad, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, back to Ruia. Around the time I stopped hanging out with the Jasbir group, I started talking to an Anglo-Indian classmate, Winona Saldana. Winona was a super skinny girl with brown blonde hair and golden green eyes. Just like Swada and Archana, she had a relaxed and self-assured air about herself. I did not understand that this attitude or way of carrying oneself came from a certain parental attitude, a way of bringing up a child that allows the child to just grow or to just be. My parents were probably better than all these parents in providing for the physical needs of the child. Freshly cooked food for all meals, very clean physical spaces to live in, flawless personal hygiene habits were inculcated. Yet, they could not give that which they did not know how to give because their own upbringing didn't provide for that. So I can't blame them. Now seeing all these pretty girls and their appearance takes me back to my appearance. Since the 7th standard naan khatai weight gain, my body had filled out. My ribs were no longer visible through my skin. But another thing that had happened was that my belly became round. That looked weird on my otherwise perfectly proportioned body. My legs had always been shapely. My breasts had grown out to be really a beautiful shape. My butt was round and flowed just right with my beautiful spine curvature. Add to that, my skin was unusually soft and had a translucent quality. Like if I walked in the sun, the flush on the cheeks was an unusual peach color. I haven't seen that on others. It looked very delightful. I've seen white people turn pink, sometimes maybe splotchy, but my peach was really beautiful. At different times, I had other girls notice and comment about how beautiful my flush was. Other than the beautiful coloring, I noticed that I was unusually soft. Like even now, if I go for a pedicure or manicure, the person doing the pedicure gets surprised and says my feet are soft like a baby's feet. Even my bones, even my flesh and even my skin, very soft. Like the bones also are very bendy kind of. So otherwise also I was very flexible. Like when I was in my 30s and invited a friend to do yoga with me in the morning after we dropped off our kids to the school bus stop, I put Shilpa Shetty's CD and just started doing that yoga thingy. I thought it was normal to be able to be that flexible and do all those asanas. My friend just sat there and looked at me and she was like, I can't do all that. You are amazing. I thought that was normal. Now when I was a kid still in school, once there was a Times of India article about how to check if you have good legs. So I followed the article and checked. Top of the thighs touching each other a little bit, check. Thigh gap, check. I had a nice thigh gap. Then legs touching at the knees, check. Curvy calves, check. Touching at ankles, check. At this point, Ruby walked in and saw me with my skirt lifted looking into the mirror. She asked me what I was doing. I showed her the article and told her I was checking if I had good legs. She just looked annoyed. Despite whatever traits might be considered contributing towards good looks, I would be pretty unaware of that because Molly's merciless teasing about my nose primarily just made me keep thinking how ugly it was. Sometimes if a girl just said, oh, you're so fair, your skin is so good, I would be genuinely surprised. Somehow the louder voice, the predominant voice was that of Molly teasing me all the while about my nose and then me looking into the mirror noticing, and then on my entire face my nose was really oily. So that made me think, it was worse. Not only was it fleshy and round and big, but it was also oily. So my awareness would just be on my nose and I would think how ugly I was. One thing that annoyed me about being soft was how my butt and thighs were jiggly and bouncy. That made me not too happy. For jiggly breasts, there was a super tight bra, so they never moved. Plus my breasts were very firm. But what to do about the thighs and butt? All that aside, I had the worst complex about my round abdomen. It was not big as such, but it was a round belly. It was not a flat belly. With the school uniform, it was easy to disguise. The shape of the uniform allowed that. The belly was small, so it was more of a problem of shape rather than size. In college too, the trend of wearing oversized tops with a low belt and the top fluffed over the belt allowed me to mostly disguise the belly. Well-fitted overalls or dungarees also hid it well. So mostly it was not visible to others. Yet, I became very aware of fitness and health since my anemia diagnosis and kept doing exercises, reading up material about fitness. Now remember, these were the pre-Google days. So I would try to find out as much as possible about nutrition and health and fitness. So my efforts to improve my health and fitness and shape were ongoing since I was in high school. But the results didn't show up until I was 19 and found myself with a stunning figure and flat belly. Which brings us back to Winona. So Winona was super skinny and Winona had this huge crush on a guy called Benny. I knew nothing about Benny. He was this cool, chill dude. He was a brash, bad boy, so to say, and I didn't have a very good opinion of him. He was a smoker. He would sit under the no smoking sign in college and puff and blow his smoke at the no smoking sign very defiantly. and he was not very well mannered in the sense that he would say rude things. So in general, I disliked Benny. I used to find him annoying and I used to get angry at him. But there was this weird thing where Winona was pining and longing for Benny, and Benny used to flirt with me when we all used to kind of hang out together. And I used to get angry and annoyed, but I found my body responding to Benny. Benny would flirt, he would make eyes at me, and I would find a response in my body. And this confused me. I was like, I don't like this guy. So he would keep flirting. One day we went to a restaurant and we were sitting there, and Benny put his foot on my foot and he kind of tried to slide his foot over my leg, and I felt heavenly. I guess that is called something. Footsie. Oh yeah, that's called Footsie. So that one time Benny played Footsie with me and I was in heaven. He just ran his foot over my calf and over my foot. And that was the most amazing I had ever felt by another person's touch. In fact, no boy had touched me till that point. And I had never experienced such arousal except when that dentist had touched my gums with the toothbrush. So I was like, wow, that felt so good. And Benny could feel the response from me. So there was me getting angry and annoyed and not liking Benny, but also my body responding to Benny. That was very strange. Like I actively disliked him. Now, when it comes to this particular person, this is when I got aware that you can have a difference between feeling romantically inclined towards someone where you like them as a person, you are attracted to their soul or who they are, and you like being close to them, being touched by them, and this other thing where it has nothing to do with who they are. It has nothing to do with what they say, because he used to say mean kind of things. And yet, here I was very attracted in only a physical way, just my body responding to him. I had never experienced this before at all. So I was drawn to Benny, yet also aware that this was not romantic or loving flirtation. So one of the days was a Saree day at college, when all the girls dressed up and applied makeup and wore saris to college, and like I left my hair open and all the girls looked so pretty on that day. So that was the day Benny flirted a little, offered to drop me home by train. I agreed and we got into the train. It was a ladies' first class compartment and Benny held the bar at the door and kind of hung out like we do when we are in an open door train. One woman saw Benny and protested that this was a ladies' compartment. I fiercely jumped in to defend him, saying he was with me. Benny gestured to me to be calm, because actually we were in the wrong, which I had not realized at that time. I stood by the door of the train with Benny, the breeze blowing the sari against my body. A lot of material is tucked into the waistband, especially at the front of the sari. There are those folds. Anyone who wears a sari knows this. Plus, I was wearing the sari high on my waist, not low, because high is the modest way of wearing it. As the wind blew the sari against my body, Benny looked amused and stared at my belly and commented, "Wow, you have such a big tummy." Now, I was very insecure about my belly and felt crushed when a boy who was hitting on me and flirting with me was also making fun of my body, even though at that very moment I was experiencing physical arousal and pleasure in his presence with the touch of his hand, with just Benny being so close to me. I felt disgust and anger at Benny's meanness. The sari was making my belly look bigger than it was. I was done with Benny the moment he spoke those words. He was blissfully unaware of how things had just shifted in my mind and continued to seek me out and attempt his flirting for many days after that. But I was over him and I looked at him with disgust and disdain. All this while, I would still hang out with Winona. Winona liked to eat and drink, I guess like a typical teen. One day we walked into the cafeteria and Winona decided to have masala dosa and mangola. The smells and sights of the cafeteria tempted me, and I also had the same. Mom used to give me 10 rupees for college only as emergency money. Now, I did not realize how strictly she meant it. So I got tempted. I had the masala dosa and mangola. That day I went home and told Mom, my money got over. The 10 rupees you gave me is finished. So she said, "What did you do with it?" So I told her I had a masala dosa and I had a mangola. This made Mom very angry. And she was like, "You spent it? That was emergency money. Now you don't get money." Mom said that and I felt so hurt. Like, why was she being like this? All other kids could get things. Even the poorest children in our school, whose parents' salary was the lowest among everyone, even their parents would give them 1 paisa, 2 paisa, 5 paisa, 10 paisa, 20 paisa, whatever. and they would have bhajis and samosa, lassi, everything was very subsidized in our school canteen, and we never ever asked for a single paisa. We would be there, watch our classmates eating and drinking all these things that came from the canteen with the great smells. We never asked mom for a single paisa when we went to school, and yet she was being so harsh. Like, it really broke my heart. Like, I couldn't even have a masala dosa and a mangola one day. Why? This behavior and the other controlling behavior where the phone calls were like, made them think, oh, we should lock the phone dial keypad, and then we had to go and ask for the key, open the dial pad and make entries into the logbook, whom you called, what number, how much time did your call last. That level of monitoring, it just broke my heart. And I remember when I had written 40 seconds because I dialed and didn't get through, and then my sister Ruby misread it as 40 minutes. Like 3-4 times I had tried to call some number for I don't know what, and I didn't get through, and each time I marked it as a 40-second call, 0.40. Ruby read that as 40 minutes, and then she just triumphantly announced, Tiny, you made the most calls, you spent the most time on the phone this month. And I was just like disgusted. Like, I just quietly accepted it. I did not even feel it was worth arguing. And so there was some level of feeling disconnected when these kind of behaviors happen, and I just started feeling disdain towards mom. Like, all this while I was there desperately trying to please my parents, trying to make them proud of me. This kind of behavior, I just like, I just took a few steps back. I started feeling it was okay to fib and to lie to them. Like, I didn't feel they were worth this level of loving loyalty that I was trying to give them. They didn't even notice it when I was being selfless and wonderful to them. So what was even the point? So this was around the time when mom said, no, you don't get money, that I just took a few steps back from mom, and she didn't even know what happened, right? And mom forgot all about this. A whole month passed, and I was painfully aware of going every day to college without a single paisa, walking in the sun, not even like sharing a rickshaw with someone or whatever, just walking up to Vikhroli station, which was over a kilometer away, and just quietly doing this. A month passed, maybe 2, I'm not sure. And one day mom was like, okay, so how much money do you have? And I told her, I don't have money. And she was like, oh, how come? She had completely forgotten. And I reminded her, I said, one day I had masala dosa and mangola, and you told me I don't get money because that was not an emergency. So after that she gave me money, but then I had been put off now. I didn't love her the same way that I did, and I didn't seek her affection or approval the same way I did. I mean, of course, these are your parents, they bring you up and you're dependent on them, so to some level that thing is there, but I just felt like she had let me down at that time. So with this background, one day Winona tells me, today you buy me a masala dosa and mangola, and I just got really disgusted, and Winona would have no idea why this triggered me, but it really triggered me. And I looked at Winona and thought, she just wants to exploit me, she wants to take things from me. And then I decided quietly in my mind to not even hang out with anyone at all. So I just started quietly attending classes alone. I wouldn't talk to anyone, and then I would just go home. So it was around during this time that one girl approached me. She was a short, stout girl with buck teeth, and she tells me, hey, you are alone, Ray? So I was just like, sorry, I didn't understand what she said. So she's like, you are alone? So I was like, yes. So she said, I'm Moni Deepa. And she had 2 more friends, Rajini and Nupur. And she introduced me to them, and they said, why don't you hang out with us? You are just alone. So these were my new friends, and these were the Behenji girls with their 2 braids. Everyone had oiled hair. Everyone had 2 braids. And everyone came from traditional families, and I was okay with this. I was happy that somebody came and approached me and made friends with me. So the rest of my time in Ruia, I used to be with Moni Deepa and Nupur and Rajni, and I don't remember anyone's surnames, otherwise I might have searched for them later on Facebook, but I have no idea where they are now. For some time afterwards I kept in touch with Rajni, but not the others. So this was the Ruia chapter. After 12th standard was done, I had to seek admission elsewhere because, like I'd mentioned earlier, Ruia did not offer a psychology major, and that was it for Ruia. So next time I'll tell you about the new college where I joined, that was Sophia College, and what all happened over there. So till then, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye for now.